Welcome to the Lord Haha podcast. This is your host, Lord Haha. And today we are going to venture into the realm of the Syrian Civil War um, that started in 2011. We're going to most specifically focus on the American sanctions, their effects, their reasoning, and the events that are interlocked with their existence as it concerns American policy in Syria. The current sanctions that are in Syria are causing millions of Syrians to face food shortages. Half of the country's population goes to bed hungry. And people in both the opposition controlled areas and government controlled areas are in urgent need. This is paraphrasing beforeitsnews.com. In any sense, I think that our making a whole population suffer because of our dislike or disagreement with the head of that state shows that we are not the democratic country that we like to believe we are. We're going to make everyone suffer for the crimes of the few. To me, that just sounds like retributional justice with no discretion and not the implementation of a system that will lead to democracy. For instance, wouldn't it seem wise to rebuild Syria, to grant it access to its own oil fields so that it can rebuild its housing developments, its infrastructure, and everything it needs to ensure that people have jobs, whether it is in the reconquest of their oil fields or in being able to live in a stable state with functional institutions and just laws? It does not seem like that is possible with the current approach of America to the Syrian crisis, which is a crisis that they have in large fact manufactured in order to spread democracy in the Middle East and in Syria, when the very fabric of democracy that they have at home is not properly applied and is not properly upheld, as one can see with either the January 6th um, protests, riots, if you want to call them that, and the Black Lives Matters riots in the streets. There is no sense of democracy in America, and America does not have the right to tell others what is and what isn't democratic. This is scary because in the past, America has been a beacon of democracy and has preserved it for its very good. But now I can no longer speak on such matters, especially when it relates to Syria, where democracy, given the sectarian divisions in the nation, the ethnic tensions, and the considerably large Sunni population, is not capable of being a state or having any democratic elements without first basing things on an authoritarian republic of sorts, an authoritarian government that runs a republic. Further on, it must be said that we have shown no interest in defeating the real terrorists in Syria. We are only concerned with advancing our agenda to the extreme because we disagree with Assad, because he is a current and former enemy and adversary of Israel. We have to back Israel's interests in the region. We don't, in fact, back a policy of common sense that realizes the realistic realize a realistic understanding of Middle Eastern structures and why they are in place, such as in Syria, in relation and connection with the dynamism, the social, cultural, and religious and ethnic dynamism of those regions. This can be seen that we do not truly, it can be seen that we do not have a true commitment to the destruction of terrorists in Syria. It has been seen with US backing PKK and YPG groups in who mostly operate in Rahova in northeastern Syria, and they have been facilitating the rise of ISIS in the region. They've been releasing them from their jails and allowing them to exit from them and to create mayhem at the behest of the YPG, which is a branch of the PKK. And this has necessitated, quite rightfully so, for Turkey's intervention in the situation to cool off the heat in the region, and also it should necessitate us to break from these people who are kidnapping Syrians and making them join their service, which is completely illegal. The illegitimacy and the illegal nature of America's involvement in Syria further can be seen in the Trump presidency's establishment of a presence in the U.S. through the oil fields of Syria. This is a most unfortunate situation, as it has starved the Syrian population, just as American sanctions are, from being able to have the needs it needs to get on from one day to the next, as it concerns basic energy concerns and basic energy needs. Also, it seems to me that we are trying to find excuses and get around the reality of the situation and continually justify our targeting of Assad as a terrorist by saying that we are regarding the oil fields as a matter of security to keep them out of the hands of ISIS, who did in fact own them for some time and was involved in selling millions of dollars worth of oil to Turkey. But one would one would think it would make more sense if Syria had control of the oil, so that they did not have to depend on oil, and so that Iran did not gain revenues from Syria from having to invest in their oil, but they could rather invest in their own. Further on, it must be said from this that there is indeed an oil component to the Syrian civil war. Justice Initiative International.wordpress.com states that if one is having trouble making sense of the Syrian conflict and the recent bombing by the Trump administration, as in what is really going on here, it is likely a war for oil. Iraq 2.0. The players in this Syrian debacle reported by the media seem to be Syria, Russia, and the United States, when the major player is likely Israel. It must be said that Israel has found a large portion of oil in the Golden Heights, which is current Syrian territory and which was stolen from them after the October 1967 war in an act of aggression against the Syrian state. It must be said also, on top of this, that oil and the seizure of Syrian land is all part of a much larger project, a much greater project that is not only reflecting itself in the policies of America towards the Syrian population and the exploitation of their oil fields, but it's a move that is a harbinger to a much larger objective of the Israelis, which is to have their hands over all the oil in an area that they designate as part of the Greater Israel Project, which is an attempt to make a Israeli state at the detriment of the minorities and the Christians of the region they will conquer, a territory that stretches from the Sinai, which is in Egypt, to the Euphrates in northern Iraq. This is an act of aggression. It is based very much on the original makeup and objective of the Israeli state when it was founded in 1948. Indeed, even though it was provoked by the Palestinians, the 1948 war, Israel evicted, stomped on, and removed forcibly a large contingent of innocent Palestinians who did not own guns and did not in any way bring up arms against Israel in the 1948 Israeli Arab War. So it must be said, who are the main factions behind this oil enterprise into Syrian territory and this move of aggression? This move of aggression that is justified on the basis of humanitarian concerns, and when it only favors Jewish supremacists and the ethnocentrism of Israel to the detriment of the peoples of the region. Does not sound very humanitarian to me. Anyways, one of the heads of Genie Oil, which is the oil enterprise, the oil um, corporation that has vested itself into oil in the area of Golden Heights, is chaired by Richard Cheney. As we all know, had many connections with Halliburton and contractors that were connected with the oil fields and American interest in the oil fields in Iraq. We have Rupert Murdoch, who is a founder of and also executive chairman of Fox Entertainment, a news channel that promotes and peddles pro-Israeli sentiments to the detriment and to the loss of truth. Jacob Rothschild is another person that heads this corporation, and as we know, the Rothschilds have themselves been involved in wars involving resources, mineral resources in South Africa and the Second Boer Wars. They have been involved in, or have profited greatly from many wars from the Napoleonic era to the current times. We also have to realize that their war in South Africa in between 1898 and 1901 was a war of aggression based off the seizure of gold mines that would have been of interest to Cecil Rhodes, Alfred Beit, and Jameson and Leander Jameson, who were all had a major part to play in the creation of the De Beers Company, which extracted mineral riches such as jewels and diamonds and used them to profit themselves after they had swindled the land from the local native peoples of that region, and had then put them to work as laborers under very tough conditions and with little pay and with little respect for their claims as an indigenous people to their land. It also led to the loss of the Republic of the Transvaal and the Free Orange State, which were appropriately Boer territory until the Rothschilds squashed it and made life very difficult for the white frontiersmen of South Africa. I would like to conclude this program. This is Lord Haha, and I will see you next time. Bye.